Hello and welcome to yet another not real episode of the ABC podcast. My name is Alex, and for the first time ever, I am joined by no one. Robyn has class tonight, and I have some time to myself, and she doesn't really like doing these too much, or at least she doesn't really contribute too much, so I figured I wouldn't burden her to be here. So this is me, all by myself, talking about things, but we'll get to that in a second. So I promised on the last update episode that I would be recording a lot over the break. I said that I wanted to get some guests on. I said that Catherine was going to be home. We were going to do that. And obviously none of that happened. School's back. For me, I assume, well, maybe I shouldn't, but I'm assuming that most of the people who listen to this are of college age and are also back in school now. If not, you're really lucky because school sucks and you should enjoy your break. But even if school hasn't started yet for you, it probably will have started by the time this comes out, maybe. But my point is, I didn't actually get a chance to record over the break. It was really busy, for one thing. I only got to see Brandon once for like an hour. I didn't really get to spend any time with him, so that was unfortunate. The rest of my time was filled with seeing family, seeing my other friends. Fortunately, I was able to see most of everyone else while I was home, except for Kenzie. Sorry, Kenzie. Next time. So a lot of hanging out with friends and family, and then other than that, just trying to decompress from law school, which, as I said last time, is quite difficult. Really takes a lot out of me. So I was just trying to chill as much as possible. So as a result, I didn't get to do any podcast recording, and I'm sorry. I feel bad a little bit. Like, I definitely enjoyed my break, so I don't feel too bad, but I wanted to get you guys some content for anyone who still cares about that, and this is gonna have to do, so I apologize. And that was the main point of this recording. Everything else is just gonna be like last time. I'm going to be running down a bunch of hot takes, a few TV shows, a bunch of movies. So if you're interested in my idiotic thoughts, then stick around. If not, I apologize. And honestly, you're not probably going to get a substantive episode until the summer. So, that's the way it is. If you're not going to stick around for the hot takes, I'll just plug really quickly to stay subscribed to the iTunes and YouTube pages anytime that something goes up, whether it is another update or whether it is a quote-unquote real episode, then, it'll just pop up in your feed and it'll be like a tiny little present from me to you. But don't expect those updates to come very often, just because that's unfortunately how life is. So, yeah, like I said, just have a bunch of hot takes that I'm going to run down, and I'm going to start with the TV shows that I have been watching. A lot of these I ended up watching quite a while ago, so I'll have some more to say about some than others, but I don't know where I was going with that. This whole recording by myself thing is really weird, because I don't get a chance to pause and collect my thoughts. I mean, I could, but then I would have to cut out the silence, and I don't really feel like doing any editing for this. So just gonna roll with it, and you'll have to excuse me. So anyway, first TV show that I have on here. Well, actually, I guess let me separate it in three categories. So I have a bunch of cartoons and anime, and then quote unquote regular TV shows, and then a bunch of movies. So first anime is the Castlevania anime from Netflix, the Netflix original. If you didn't see, they just announced season 2 is going to be coming out later this summer, which is pretty rad because I ended up liking season 1 a lot. It is a little bit of a slow start. I think the most interesting, or not interesting, curious thing about it is that they chose to do an episodic style rather than just a straight up movie, because I think that would have worked just as well for the story and format that they chose. But they chose to do episodes probably because that would give them the license or leeway to do future seasons as opposed to, making more movies. I guess that works out a little better. But anyway, season 1 was really good. It started out pretty slow. I think I said that already. It doesn't didn't really pick up until like episode 3 or 4. There's only 4 episodes, but they set themselves up for something really cool at the end, I think. So it should be interesting to see where it goes from there. But honestly, I'd probably have to say maybe don't watch this one quite yet. Wait until season 2 comes out or a little bit before that. I think that'll probably serve you better. If you have already watched it, I'm probably going to watch it again just because it is so fast. Like I watched the whole thing in one night. It's so short that, and I'll probably need to refresh myself on what happened. So overall, I would say it's good. I recommend it. Then I watched a little anime you may have heard of called Cowboy Bebop. This is one of the most highly regarded anime that's ever been made, I think. People just, lose their minds over this thing. They say it's so good. And I enjoyed it a lot. And the movie that came after it, Knocking on Heaven's Door. I enjoyed it a lot, but it didn't quite make it into my top 5 of all time. For several reasons. I think the main one is just that there's so little, not continuity, but a cohesive story that follows through the whole series. It's one season, 20 something, I think it's 26 episodes. So there's pretty much every episode is standalone. There's a couple of exceptions. They kind of do dive into the different characters' backstories, but they don't really go together anyway. You could more or less watch them in any order with, maybe the exception of the final episode. You might, need some backstory there. But that was my main thing, as there's a couple shows that I'll talk about later on where, to me, story is almost everything. Like, if I had to rank the important elements of what I find enjoyable in my television shows, and I think especially cartoons and anime, it's just a really strong, compelling story. And as great as Cowboy Bebop was, it did lack that. Now, other than that, I liked pretty much everything. The animation was, it's a pretty old anime, so the animation was a little older. Like it definitely shows, but that I think that also gave it a lot of charm, kind of like a retro kind of vibe, very like early Pokemon or Digimon. The voice actors were all really great, most notably Steve Bloom, I think. It's either Bloom or Blum, I'm not really sure how to pronounce it. As the main character Spike, really great. And everyone else, good job too. The characters were all really fun. My favorite character, in case anyone cares, was what was her name? The little girl, who has a boy's name, and now it's gonna drive me nuts. Her name is Edward. Okay, wow. See, like I said, this was a really bad example of podcasting because normally I have a co-host, and I would have Brandon fill for time while I looked it up, or have him look it up while I kept talking, but there's no one here. And now I'm just completely droning on. Next anime I watched was called Power Stone. I've talked about this anime on the show before, but this was my first time actually watching it. We had this old VHS when I was a kid. I believe it was the Sonic the Hedgehog animated movie, which I really love, side note. And it had this cartoon on it. Or you know what? Maybe it was our Metabots VHS. Regardless. There was a trailer or commercial, whatever you want to call it, for the show Power Stone, that I thought always looked really good, and I always wanted to watch it, and I finally did. Turns out it's okay. It's got some nice selling points. I have to say the story overall was better than Cowboy Bebop, only because there was a lack of story in Cowboy Bebop. But Power Stone I enjoyed quite a bit. It's very kooky, very strange. Basic premise is that there are these 7, I believe it was 7, gems that are called Power Stones, and when you find one, it gives you the ability to transform into this super form, I guess. I mean, it's very kind of Power Ranger-esque. That's like the best way I could put it. It's also kind of Captain Planet-y, I guess, because each of the different stones ends up having like a different element associated with it, or at least when the people get a hold of the stone and they transform, it kind of has a certain element. Their transformation has an element associated with them. So like the main character, he turns into this like flying rocket man with like this suit of armor, so he's kind of like steel. And there's this gypsy woman kind of person, and she's like fire based. And there's this samurai guy who has electric powers, and there's a rock dude, and there's this water ninja girl. And my favorite one is this guy literally just turns into a Super Saiyan. I mean, he looks the same, but his hair is golden. And his shirt comes off. And there was a Native American type of character who turns into like a giant fighting totem pole. So they're all different elements, and it was good. It was weird. It was kind of funny. It was pretty short. So, if any of that sounds good to you, then go ahead and check it out. Then I watched Skylanders Academy, which I really like. I think season 2, which was the most recent season, was even better than season 1. Again, plot really great, animation really great, voice acting really great. All around, I just had a really fun time with it. I mean, it's not gonna like break into my top 5 cartoons or anything, but I think it's a really solid show. I don't think it gets enough love either from the Skylanders community. I don't hear very many people talking about it. And just from like the people who watch Netflix, I mean, you don't really have to know a lot about Skylanders. Well, sorry, you don't really have to know anything about Skylanders to enjoy it. It definitely helps. Like you can kind of see some of the lore, or like see some of the characteristics that they have in the games. And they don't really have a lot of characteristics, but there's a little bit of correlation there. But I just think it's a really fun show, so I would recommend checking it out. Then I watched another anime called Dead Man Wonderland. So this was really weird. I'd never heard of it. It was actually recommended to me by a very unlikely person, a friend of mine and Brandon's named Abby. My senior year of high school, when Abby and I were like first just getting to know each other, she was hanging out with this guy, and they watched this show together, or the anime rather. And she told me about it, and I thought it sounded interesting, so I like wrote it down somewhere. Or actually, she sent me like a Facebook message saying like, "Oh, this is what it was called." And I finally got around to watching this, and I gotta say, I didn't really like it very much. It wasn't terrible, just not. I don't know. It was just not that great. So I am going to spoil this one a little bit. Like I said, I don't recommend it. So, if you decide to watch it anyway, I guess I don't feel too bad about that. Oh, and I'm not going to remember any of the characters' names because I watched this several months ago. So I apologize about that. But the story is about this kid, the main kid. And he's at school one day and he's talking with his friends. And they're talking about how Tokyo got destroyed in some like nuclear holocaust or like lab accident or something. I don't remember, because it's an anime and that happens in like half of all animes. And they're just like casually mentioning this, and then all of a sudden this mysterious figure like flies up into the window of their classroom, and he like blows it up, and everyone dies except for this one kid. And then the people come to like find out what happened, and they find this kid, and he gets blamed for the explosion. Not the explosion in Tokyo, just like the explosion in the classroom. He gets blamed for the murder of all of his classmates. And this is like in the first like 5 or 10 minutes of the show. And oh man, I remember during the trial, they brought in this falsified video of the kid like confessing to it. And he said something super terrible, and I can't remember what it was, but it was so jarring, but also so funny to hear this kid say that. I don't know, it was really weird. But anyway, so he gets framed, and he gets sent to this prison that is also a amusement park. Like, people go and visit there. They have the prisoners, like, do these sporting competitions for the people's entertainment, and if you do well in the competition, then you get, like, benefits to enjoy while you're in the prison. And you have to eat this candy once every like 48 or 72 hours to stay alive, because otherwise the collar they put around your neck like injects you with poison. And then there's just like a bunch of really weird stuff that ultimately it never pays off. Like, they kind of introduce a lot of topics and concepts and mysteries that they really never go back to very much. It's very bizarre. So anyway, this kid finds out that he, as a result of the accident in the classroom, the masked man, whatever they call him, puts this like gem inside this kid's chest, and it gives him the ability, or they call them dead men, and that gives him the ability to do special stuff with his blood. Every different dead man has a different, harnesses their blood in a different way. Like, they introduce this one other character who becomes important to the plot, who slices open his forearms and he can create these scythes out of them. So the main kid, again, I forget his name, his ability is to do a Hadouken with his blood. If you don't know what a Hadouken is, it's I guess I would say it's the signature attack of Ryu from Street Fighter. It's basically just a little fireball. So he can like shoot out little bullets of blood at his opponents, and that's the main like introductory thing. All of that's probably like in the first 3 minutes, or not 3 minutes, 3 episodes or so. There's more to it than that, but I don't know. I did not enjoy it at all. Like, I found it very, I kind of forced myself to watch it once I had started watching it. It's only 12 episodes. That's probably the best thing about it, is it's very short. But I kind of just had to force myself to get through it. And, yeah. So, sorry, Abby, but maybe make me another recommendation. Maybe you can redeem yourself. After that, I watched the new cartoon Stretch Armstrong and the Flex Fighters. We talked about this on the last real episode, the one with Vincent and Armando, when they just announced it, and it's already out. And this cartoon, to me, was very mediocre. There was nothing bad about it, but there's nothing that really made it stand out. And I really wanted to like this show. Unfortunately, in the end, like I said, like, it just didn't do anything to really wow me. I will keep watching it just because that's the kind of person I am. Once I start watching a show, it has to be exceptionally bad or offensive to me in order for me to stop watching it. So I will keep watching it, but I don't know, like, the two main like surprises, or I guess like plot twists, if you want to call them, or reveals, whatever, in the show, I called from like the third or fourth episode, probably. I don't know, like, they just tried to do some interesting stuff. It just didn't really work out very well, at least in my opinion. After that, I watched Attack on Titan. So season 2 came out in the summer last year. At least that's when it started, I think. But I decided to watch season 1 again because it had been so long. I watched it like my junior year, I think. And I'd basically forgotten, like, I remembered the main story parts, but I'd forgotten a lot of what happened. So I decided to watch it again. Still really, really great show. Definitely in my top 5 favorite anime. But before the rewatch, if you had asked me what my absolute favorite anime was, I probably would have gone back and forth between Attack on Titan and Death Note. But having watched Death Note very recently and just watching Attack on Titan, I can now definitively say that Death Note is my favorite. Watching Attack on Titan the second time, kind of knowing where the story was going, and therefore being able to step back a little bit, not being so wrapped up in the coolness, being a little bit more critical. I kind of saw some of the flaws in the show, one of which is that it is so over the top in the characters' drama, and that might be a cultural thing. I don't really know, but a lot of characters, but Eren and Armin particularly, almost everything they say, it like just comes out in a shouty, over the top, over dramatic, very anime way. And even in Japanese, I did watch this subbed. Thank God. I don't think I could have stood to watch the dub. Even in Japanese, like, that started to get kind of grating. So that was not very great, but what are you going to do? The other main thing that I have to say is that while the story is really, really good, some of the parts do really take their time to get where they're going. If I could, make one change, I would probably, truncate some stuff, just kind of shorten it down a little bit. maybe speed some things up. Mostly in season 1. I think season 2 was a little bit better about it, and I'll get there in a little bit. But season 1, like, it's not filler like it is, it's more dramatic stuff, but I kind of just want them to get back to the Titan killing. Not that the drama isn't bad, sometimes it just takes too long for them to get where they're going. I feel like they could expedite that process a little bit. But yeah, so that was season 1, still really great, still love it. Season 2, man, I don't know if I could say like, I liked one better than the other. It's just kind of a whole package, but it was really great. 12 episodes it was, I believe. So that made it a little bit more palatable, at least. It wasn't as extended of a viewing process as season 1 was. But season 2 was great. My major complaint about season 2 was that they answered almost none of the mysteries that they introduced from season 1, and instead they introduce even more mysteries that are, and almost none of those are explained either. So I just really want to know what is happening in the show. For Christmas, I got the manga, the Colossal Edition Volume 2. I already had the first one I bought for myself. I believe it was actually last year. But my mother-in-law bought me the second one as a Christmas present. So I really need to dig into those to A, find out if they explain any of those mysteries, which I doubt they will. B, to see what kind of changes are made between the manga and the anime. And C, to see if the manga takes as much time getting where the anime goes. Or, if anything, I feel like it'll probably take longer. So I'm really curious to see how all of that shakes out. But yeah, that's on my to-do list for sure. But regardless, Attack on Titan, season 1, amazing. Season 2, possibly even more amazing. I can't wait for season 3. I don't think I'll watch the verse 2 again before that happens. But yeah, I'm super looking forward to it when it comes out later this year. Alright, final cartoon that I have to talk about, final cartoon to talk about is Young Justice. Full disclosure, I've seen this show before. I'm watching it again right now, to prep for season 3, which is supposed to come out later this year. I haven't quite finished it yet. I have 4 episodes left, although I should, if all goes according to plan, finish watching that tonight. But I don't know when this next one is going to come out, so I'll go ahead and talk about it now. Again, so good. Such a quality cartoon. I am so thrilled that whoever it was, I don't know if it was the fans or the creators of the show, or some executive at Cartoon Network, or at DC who saw the light. That was a poor choice of words if you've seen the show, but you know what I mean. Regardless, whoever it was that made this happen to get season 3 to become a reality, from the bottom of my heart, thank you, because we need more content in the world like this. Young Justice is an amazing show. Having said that, again, on the rewatch, being able to step back and be more critical, I did notice some things that I wasn't quite as much of a fan of. One thing is that the show centers around teenagers, and that really does show. Maybe it's just because I'm older and more mature / more bitter about life, but some of the petulance and lack of regard for authority and lack of respect for in certain senses, lack of respect for the Justice League is kind of gets on my nerves a little bit, but, I can set that aside. Probably my bigger complaint is that while the plot of the show is really great, and while it does all flow together, in season 1 especially, hold on, I probably worded that wrong. The plot of the show all comes together really nicely, period. But in season 1 especially, it's more so that there's little bits and pieces that end up kind of becoming a bigger part of the whole at the end. It's not that everything that happens throughout the first season ends up culminating in this big reveal or conspiracy or what have you. They just take kind of little bits and pieces and they hint at it throughout the show that ends up, kind of coming to a head at the season finale. I don't like that as much as a show like Breaking Bad, which I don't know if I've ever said this explicitly before, but in my mind, Breaking Bad is the pinnacle of storytelling in television, because everything that happens in that show is done for a purpose. Well, not everything, but almost everything, happens for a reason. There's very little filler, very little extraneous knowledge or scenes or camera work or anything. Like, basically everything that happens leads to or has consequences, leads to something else, or has consequences for something else later on. And as great as Young Justice is, it doesn't quite pull that off. Season 2, rectifies that a lot, but it does still have that same problem a little bit. Other than that, I cannot speak more highly of this show. You can probably, on my next update, whenever I have enough hot takes that I need to get off my chest, you can probably look forward to me talking about the Avengers Earth's Mightiest Heroes, which I'll be talking about, or which I'll be watching next, and will then be ready to talk about whenever I get done. So I'm curious to see, again, going back to the whole Death Note versus Attack on Titan debate for me, if you had asked me before this, I would have been very hard pressed to choose between Young Justice and Earth's Mightiest Heroes. And so now, going back and watching them again, back to back, I'm really curious for myself to find out which one I end up liking more. Okay, so a few other quick shows to talk about. I finished watching The Office. I've got really mixed feelings about The Office. Overall, I do end up liking it, but the first few seasons, it probably wasn't until like season 4 that I was really into it, really remembering why I liked the show in the first place. The first few seasons, they have their funny moments, but they really struggled to find their footing. Honestly, I'm kind of surprised that they kept it going for so long, or that they kept it going in order for them to find their groove. Probably it has something to do with the UK version of The Office. I don't actually know that for a fact. It's just a guess. But there's like some not funny things in the first few seasons. But once they do get going, I do end up liking it a lot. It's, there's lots of funny moments, lots of funny characters, also lots of annoying characters. I really don't like Michael Scott very much at all. And, funny stuff, lots of heartwarming stuff. Overall, it's a good show. So if you need, I watched it as something to watch in the background. Like, I started watching it because I needed something to do while I was editing, but then, once I had little editing to do, it just became something that I would watch when I just had like a free 20 or 30 minutes. But yeah, The Office is fun. Immediately after that, I watched Parks and Rec, and Robyn bullied me into forcing us to watch that together, which the first time she had watched it, was she and I watched it together. So this is my third time watching it, and that show is just gold. I mean, it's way, way better than The Office. Like, I don't think anybody can debate that, with the possible exception of season 7. I had some issues with it, but whatever. Parks and Rec is amazing. Definitely watch that if you've never seen it before. I think anybody can watch that show and find something or someone to relate to. So that's my little pitch on NBC comedies. Unfortunately, they got rid of Scrubs on Netflix, so I don't have a convenient way to watch that. And I just recently watched 30 Rock, so I'm not going to watch that again. But anyway, that's besides the point. Oh, I didn't write these down, but really quickly, I finished watching the most recent, not the current seasons, but most recent seasons of The Flash and the Arrow. Pretty good. I'm just not as into Arrow anymore as I used to be. I still watch it just out of custom and because I'm invested just in the universe that they have created on the CW. It's just not as captivating for me anymore, but it was fine, probably better than some of the more recent seasons, but not by much. The Flash was good, definitely not as good as the first 2 seasons. They're just kind of, I don't know, I feel like they might be stagnating a little bit, and the things that they set up for season 3 didn't really do much for me, but I haven't that they set up for season 4 rather, but I haven't watched it yet, so maybe I could be proven wrong. Then I watched season 2 of Ultimate Beastmaster, which I don't have anything more to say about that I didn't say about for season 1. The main difference is that they got different countries and commentators. So let me see if I can do this. For season 1, they had the USA, Germany, Mexico, Japan, Brazil, and South Korea. And for season 2, they had the US, India, China, France, Spain, and Italy, I believe. And they also got rid of the 2 American commentators. It was Terry Crews and some woman that I'd never heard of. And now they got a guy named Tiki Barber, who I believe played in the NFL, and a comedian named Chris DiStefano, I think it was. They're okay. The comedian guy I found quite funny. Tiki Barber was, whatever. I like Terry Crews a lot too, though. So, maybe for season 3 they'll do the best of both worlds and they'll get the comedian guy and Terry Crews. My biggest complaint about season 1 was that they did very little to change up the obstacles, and they did improve that slightly, but they could do a lot more. But yeah, it was just more of the same. But, I still liked it. No one else in my family really seemed to enjoy it. My dad kind of got into it a little bit. My brother and sister, they didn't tell me to turn it off or anything. But they weren't super caring about it. And Robyn basically didn't care about it at all. She was very annoyed whenever I wanted to watch it, but I just wanted to get it over with. But yeah, that's all I have to say about it. Okay, final TV show was Master of None, the Aziz Ansari Netflix original TV show. It was good. I liked it. Not super funny. I thought some of the acting was either strange or in some cases just really bad, which was really weird. But overall, it was fine. I would say check it out, I guess. There's some news stories circulating about Aziz Ansari, and I'm not going to comment on those, but if, that makes you not want to support that show, I guess I would understand it, and you probably wouldn't be missing out too much as a result, but I don't know. It was a thing that I watched, and I had some enjoyment out of it. Yeah. Alright, so I've got... I guess it's not as many movies as I thought, but there's quite a few, so I'll kind of run through some of these more quickly than others. I rewatched the movie Jumper with Hayden Christensen and Samuel L. Jackson. That movie, it doesn't deserve any Academy Awards or anything, but I liked it a lot. It's fun, it's fast, it's got some interesting concepts that it toys around with, and overall I think it's just a fun little thing to watch if you're into things to watch, which I clearly am because I have no life. Personal life update, I guess, if anybody cares. I still haven't made any friends in New York, so that's fun. No, it's not fun. I don't know why I said that. It's something else. Anywho, I watched La La Land for the second time. Oh man, that movie just, like I said, I've only seen it twice, but both times it has just blown me away with everything about it. That movie is seriously a 10 out of 10 for me. There's nothing about it that does not work for me, honestly. So definitely watch it if you haven't seen it already. Then because I was in the mood, I watched Whiplash for the I guess either third or fourth time. Also, probably a 10 out of 10. I would have to say La La Land is better, but they're so different that it's really hard to compare. Whiplash is just such an intense movie, and La La Land has its intense moments, but for the most part, it's very, humorous and comical and musical, and it's just a lot easier to kind of plop down on the couch and watch it. Whereas Whiplash, you have to be prepared for the experience of watching it. But anyway, Whiplash, great movie. Definitely watch it. Brandon and I did a deep dive and / review our thoughts about it. Way back, I was I'm probably wrong, but I want to say episode 17 sticks out in my mind for some reason. So, regardless, you could find it and hear more about our thoughts on it. But watch the movie first, because you owe that to yourself. Okay, I watched the animated Return of the Capes Crusaders movie with Adam West before he passed away, R.I.P. It was weird, but I liked it, so check that out. Then I watched the Batman and Harley Quinn movie. Man, if you remember the last time I did an update, I said a few times that about a couple different things, that there were some things that really worked for me and some things that really didn't, and this is another perfect example of that. There's some really weird fan servicey stuff. They do go for some jokes that just, for me, did not land at all, and I get that. I guess I'm not necessarily their target audience. It probably is for younger kids, but I don't know, man. I guess I'll just give a little minor spoiler, and it's really not even that, but I'll say it anyway. They do a couple of fart jokes in the movie, which, in my opinion, just should not be anywhere near a Batman movie. So that was strange. I finally watched the Wonder Woman movie, the one with Gal Gadot. It was good. I liked it. Wasn't really a big fan of the ending. I don't want to spoil anything. I kind of saw the ending coming, but I kind of didn't. But yeah, I don't know. It was okay. I liked it. It was definitely better than Batman vs Superman, but I didn't think that it was like the greatest movie of all time, which I feel like a lot of people kind of were making it out to be. So maybe my expectations were too high, but overall I did like it. Still haven't seen Justice League, so I don't want to have anything to say on that. But yeah. Okay, I watched the two, I think there have only been two, live action Mortal Kombat movies. The first one is not great. Yeah, it's not great. I mean, it's fine. It's kind of fun. Like, it's got some moments in it, but overall, not a very good movie. The second one was probably even worse. Not way worse, but definitely not better. So, that happened. I don't even know why I watched it. I think it was because... No, I don't even know why I watched it. I just did. But anyway, let's move on. So, okay, there's another TV show, but there's a reason that I didn't talk about it with the TV shows. I watched all three, yes, you heard that right, all three of the Punisher movies, as well as the Netflix Punisher show. So we'll just go, I didn't actually watch them in this order, but I'll just talk about them in chronological order. So the first one came out in 1989, starring Dolph Lundgren as Frank Castle. Also, not a very good movie. I'm not going to say anything else about it. It's just not that great. Then there was another one that came out in, I think it was 2005, starring Thomas Jane. That was slightly better, but also not great. John Travolta plays the main antagonist, and he's probably the best part of that movie. His acting was really great. Not that Thomas Jane's wasn't, or anybody else's acting for that matter, but I think John Travolta kind of stole that movie for the most part. And then finally, there was another movie in that series. Well, it's not really a series because they're all different actors, but anyway, there was a third movie called Punisher Warzone that maybe you haven't heard of. Maybe you haven't heard of any of these movies. I don't know. Regardless, Punisher Warzone, I'd seen before. Going into it, I had somehow had the notion that this movie was even worse than the first Punisher, not the very first Punisher movie, but the first modern Punisher movie, if that makes any sense. The one with Thomas Jane. But this movie was actually really, really good. Like, I would put it on par with like an Iron Man because, without going into too much detail, the plot was really good, the acting was really good, the action was really good. Just, I thought it all worked really well. So if you're a fan of the Marvel movies, but not beyond even the MCU, I would say check this movie out. And you don't have to watch any of the other movies. I only did it because I'm a crazy person and I like to try and be as thorough as possible. But this movie is definitely standalone. You don't have to know anything else about the character or anything. So yeah, that was good stuff. And then the Netflix show, the one starring Johnny Bernthal, also really good. Very different from Punisher Warzone, obviously, for lots of different reasons. But, I would say it's another home run for the Marvel Netflix shows, which, all of them have been with the exception of Iron Fist and the Defenders. So yeah, just another addition to their catalog of shows about Marvel characters that probably will never get their own movies. So anyway, keeping on the theme of Marvel movies that were not produced by Marvel Comics or whatever, is the Daredevil movie starring Ben Affleck. People hate this movie for some reason, and some of it is deserved, but overall, I think this movie was is all right. It's nothing spectacular. It doesn't reinvent the genre or anything, but I had an okay time watching it. On the other hand, the follow-up to that movie, Elektra, is pretty bad. I watched it just last night, and I almost couldn't tell you anything about it because I wasn't really paying that close attention because it didn't really captivate me. And that's all I want to say about it. Okay, actually, I will say one more thing about it. The actor who plays Shang Tsung in the Mortal Kombat movie, which he's like a wizard sorcerer kind of guy. He is in the Elektra movie as like the head of the Hand, I guess. Yeah. Okay. The next movie that I have to talk about, because in case you can't tell, not necessarily doing these in the order that I watched them, is actually, before I get to the movie, is the graphic novel of Watchmen. I read that for the first time. It was very long, and it was good. I did like it. I had heard really, really great things about it before I read it, but I don't know, it didn't knock my socks off or anything. I had seen the movie before, so maybe I kind of knew what was happening, but I also didn't really like the graphic novel format. I was just kind of paying more attention to the words than really looking at the art. And maybe I was doing it the wrong way. I don't know, but I just cared more about what they were saying than what was really happening in the frames, I guess. I was also surprised at how old it was. I didn't realize that it was from the 80s. I thought it was a lot newer than that. Because the art, you can definitely tell that it's not very new. But anyway, so I read the graphic novel and then I watched the Blu-ray because a couple years ago, I think, I bought the collector's edition that comes with a nice little box and the book, a graphic novel, and the Blu-ray and a couple other things, I think. So yeah, I have the collector's edition and I watched it, the extended super director's cut or whatever, which was 3.5 hours long. Again, I've seen the movie before. Second time around, I think I liked it about the same as I did the first time. There's some things that are pretty cool about it and some things that aren't. As far as differences between the graphic novel and the movie, they're almost identical, except they do make a couple of really big changes right at the end, which I think have some pretty big implications on the moral of the story and the outcome for the rest of the universe, which is now actually relevant because they're introducing the Watchmen into the main DC universe. Or at least they're introducing Dr. Manhattan. I don't really know about the rest. But yeah, Watchmen's alright. I know it kind of gets some hate now, a lot of it having to do with the fact that Zack Snyder directed it, but it's okay. One thing that I want to mention is that the actor who plays the character, the comedian, is the actor who plays Negan in The Walking Dead, which is I didn't realize before I had watched it, so that was worth pointing out, I guess. Okay, Robyn and I watched The Big Sick, which is the sitcom written and starring Kumail Nanjiani, who's a really funny guy. And the movie was not as funny as I was expecting, but overall, it was good. I would say check it out. Okay, a few Christmas movies, really quick. First, we watched a movie called Better Watch Out. It's a thrillery, crimey, mystery-y movie set around Christmas time. It is a Christmas movie in that sense, but whatever. I mean, you can get into that debate if you want to, but I'm not going to do that right now. Anyway, it's about this kid, and he's being babysat, and he's in love with his babysitter, even though she's 6 years older than him. and there's this home invasion and chaos ensues. I'll just say that. It kind of goes some weird places, but if you're into it, that's cool. If you're not, I can't blame you. I wasn't super into it. Probably my main gripe was that the main character, who's the kid that's being babysat, is just kind of a brat. But anyway, then we watched the first 3 Home Alone movies. I was planning on watching the other 2 because there are a total of 5 if you didn't know, but I ran out of time for Christmas, so maybe next year, or later this year, I should say. But the first 3 Home Alone movies, I think, are all really good. They obviously, some parts of them are better than others. The first one, has the wow factor. That's not really the right word, but you probably get what I mean. Just, it has the originality going for it, and everything else is kind of a deviation of that. But I think it still really works. I know that some people don't care for Home Alone 3 as much as the first 2. And while I understand that, I will adamantly defend that movie. And if you want to have that debate with me, hit me up on Twitter, @AtariAlex. But that's all I'll say about those 3 movies. And then we watched Grandma Got Run Over by a Reindeer, which was an animated movie on the WB back in the day, now the CW. I don't know if they still show it anymore, but I watched it on the internet. And I like that movie a lot. It's not a classic for a reason. For one thing, it's newer than most Christmas movies. I think pretty much every Christmas movie that's considered a classic is probably at least 20 years old by now. Maybe I'm wrong, but who knows. But yeah, Grandma Got Run Over by a Reindeer is really fun. There's like some weird musical numbers in it, and it's like an hour long, so you're not even like committing to that much by watching it. So maybe check it out next year. Later this year. I watched the movie Fences, or Robyn and I watched together the movie Fences, starring Denzel Washington and the lady from How to Get Away with Murder. Amanda Waller is not her real name, that's her character's name, but you know who I'm talking about, hopefully. Maybe you don't, I don't know. Whatever. We watched that movie. It was really good. It was very intense. Denzel Washington is a complete jerk in that movie. But is also very compelling, and we watched it on Amazon Prime because it was free. I don't know if it still is, but if it is, I would say check it out. Then my cousin Frankie and I, we saw in theaters Jumanji: Welcome to the Jungle, and while the two of us vehemently disagree about the movie, I say it was bad. He liked it quite a bit. And also, just several other people I've heard talk about it, they all liked it too, so I don't know what they're seeing that I wasn't, but yeah, just don't see the movie. I don't want to, get into it too much, but just, don't. Okay, then I watched with my sister and Robyn a comedy called World's End. It's the 3rd movie in the Blood and Ice Cream trilogy, which you may have heard of. It's Shaun of the Dead, Hot Fuzz, and this movie. All written and directed by Edgar Wright. I think that Simon Pegg, he definitely helped write the 3rd one, World's End. I don't know about the other 2. I want to say he did, but I'm not positive. Anyway, it's fun. It's a fun movie. It's my 2nd time seeing it. I enjoyed it both times. I would say I like Hot Fuzz better. It's just kind of funnier to me. But, it was a thing that I watched and I enjoyed. So there you go. Star Wars: The Last Jedi. Man, I'm just gonna say really quickly that I'm very conflicted about the movie. Overall, I did like it, but at this point in time, and I want to really emphasize that at this point in time, having only seen it once and having seen the other Star Wars movies, with the exception of Rogue One and The Force Awakens, like at least a dozen times, at this point in time, The Last Jedi is my least favorite Star Wars movie in the main canon. And that's all I want to say about it. If you want to have a discussion with me over some other medium, please feel free. But I'm already going almost an hour on this, and I still have like 8 more movies to talk about. So I don't want to take up any more time about Star Wars. But overall, I want to reiterate, I did like the movie. So there you have it. Okay, my sister made me watch a movie called Drop Dead Gorgeous, starring Kirsten Dunst and the girl from Wild Things. I don't remember. Oh, Denise Richards. There we go. And there's several other famous people in it. Anyway, it's about a beauty pageant in Minnesota, and I would describe it as Miss Congeniality meets Fargo meets documentary movie that I can't think of. Man, I came up with like a really good analogy when we were watching it, but that was like a month ago already, so I can't even remember. Anyway, she says that it's the funniest movie that she's ever seen, and while I don't agree with that, I did think that it was very funny, and I would recommend it if you can find it. We had some trouble getting our hands on a copy. Then I watched The Darkest Hour in theaters with Robyn and my dad. This was the movie that we talked about on the episode with Vincent and Armando. We talked about the trailer, starring Gary Oldman as Winston Churchill. Really good. Really surprising. Quite enlightening about history and whatnot. But yeah, it was good. I would say it's not necessarily one that you need to catch in the theaters, but I would say check it out maybe once it comes out, like on Redbox. Then, after we got back to New York, we watched the movie Dunkirk, because it is intimately tied into the plot of The Darkest Hour. Not The Darkest Hour. That's a separate movie about aliens attacking the Earth and putting out all the electricity in the world. Not attacking, I guess, invading. So anyway, Dunkirk and Darkest Hour are very intertwined in their plots. So we watched that for more historical reference. Unfortunately, it's too late for me to say this now, but I really wish I had seen this in theaters. I feel like the big screen and the sound would have made a much bigger impact on me. But it was good. My dad didn't like it as much, which is interesting because he's like a big kind of, history and war person. Like, he's the one who wanted us to go with him to see Darkest Hour. So, but yeah, Dunkirk was good. Probably not for everybody, but it was a good movie. Okay, so on the way from New York to Texas, we drove home. We listened to the third and final book in the Divergent series called Allegiant. It was terrible. Just, wow, that neither of us enjoyed that book. We basically mocked it relentlessly the entire time, and we're just waiting for it to get over. So that I don't understand the appeal of the Divergent series for anybody. But I'm also not a teenage girl, so maybe I don't have room to talk. Or I don't have the authority to talk on the matter. On the way back to New York from Texas, we listened to a book called The Girl on the Train, which was really, really good. Okay, maybe not really, really good. Maybe just really good. But I enjoyed it a lot. It's about this woman who's an alcoholic and a total mess, and she discovers this kidnapping by a series of events, and things kind of go from there. It was good. We watched the movie version starring Emily Blunt and I don't know the actor's name, but he played Gaston in the live-action Beauty and the Beast movie, and the fisherman guy from the Hobbit movies. Anyway, he was in it, and Allison Janney was in it, and those are like the main actors that I know, or at least that I can think of off the top of my head. I didn't enjoy it quite as much as the book. They did make some interesting changes, but, for the most part, it was the same. But yeah, it was okay. I would say check it out, even if you haven't read the book. But yeah. Then we watched a movie called The House. This was a comedy starring Will Ferrell and Amy Poehler and Jason Mantzoukas, who's been in a ton of different things. Probably like the most widely, I would say the most widely known thing that he would be known from is The League. He plays the idiot brother-in-law, Rafi. Also, probably the funniest character in that show, so that was great. But for maybe more conventional TV, quote-unquote, he played Dennis Feinstein in Parks and Rec, the perfume cologne mogul. But anyway, it was that guy. And, really quick, interesting side note is that he is a big fan of Gilmore Girls, which, you shouldn't, stereotype anyone as to who watches Gilmore Girls, but you wouldn't expect a guy like him to watch it necessarily, or at least I wouldn't. but I'm a terrible judgmental person. So anyway, The House. It was funny. I liked it. It wasn't, I wasn't roaring out loud every time they made a joke, but it had some funny things in it, and I liked it. Then we watched a movie called The Truman Show. Also a really good movie. Very interesting concept. They took it in a direction that, I liked, but I would have liked to have seen other possibilities that maybe they had gone with. And yeah, the movie is on Netflix, so I would say check it out. But that's that's all I have to say about it. I would say check it out. Okay, final movie that I want to talk about is a movie that I watched last night with Robyn called Phone Booth, starring Colin Farrell and Forrest Whitaker and Kiefer Sutherland. I'd seen it before, and on my TV, when I go to Chromecast, it brings up this list of apps that are installed on the TV and kind of the featured movies of the week or whatever. And on Crackle, they had this movie that they had for free. And I was like, oh man, I like this movie. I think Robyn will like it too. Let's watch it. So we did. She didn't like it as much, but I liked it. I still like it a lot. It's not the greatest movie ever. It's a thriller movie. And while it doesn't reinvent the genre, it does some cool things. And I think it tells an interesting story, and I like it. And yeah, so you can watch it on Crackle. I don't use Crackle. That's the second time I've ever watched anything on Crackle, I think, and the first time was years ago. It was nice. We just had to watch a couple 15-second commercials every, I don't know, 20 minutes or so. So it was a good deal. It was a lot better than Hulu, which is way worse about commercials. But that's my recommendation, Phone Booth. I would say check it out. So, at long last, we have come to the end of my hot takes, and I hope you enjoyed them. And stay tuned maybe for more, possibly in the future, maybe. If you didn't enjoy them, let me know, because if no one's going to listen to these, nobody cares about them, then I'm not going to take the time to keep a list and talk about them. I know I just spewed information about everything that I've watched in the last month and a half or so for an hour, and my mouth is very dry. So if no one's gonna enjoy this, then I'm not gonna do it anymore. But seriously, please let me know. I won't be offended. Yeah, so that's my little PSA on that. Okay, so I took a quick little break, and by little break I mean 4 hours. But I watched a movie, and Robyn's here. Say hi.
Hi.
So real quick, I'll talk about the movie because she wasn't here. So I watched a Netflix original called The Babysitter. And I had heard about this on a podcast, and they had recommended against it. But he said some things that kind of piqued my interest, and I was just kind of surfing around for a movie to watch, so I decided to put it on. And I thought it was really good. I went to go rate it afterwards because I do that with Netflix original movies, because I feel like they're either terrible and people shouldn't watch them, or they're really good and people should watch them. They got rid of their rating system, but I was going to give it 5 stars, but now it's just a thumbs up or a thumbs down. But anyway, big thumbs up from me. Highly recommend it. It was bizarre. It was kind of scary. There were a lot of moments that made me really laugh. So all around, it just really worked for me.
Would I like it?
Yeah, so I didn't watch it with you because what he had said on the podcast made it sound like you probably wouldn't like it, but I think you actually would.
Well, thanks for leaving me out.
Well,
TFTI.
I didn't know.
TFTI, well, I sat in class for how many hours? 5?
It was not 5 hours.
It's 4.5.
That's not 5.
That's still a long time to be in class.
Anyway, so that's actually all the hot takes. But of course that means that I couldn't leave you guys without a fanfic fights to finish this thing off. So this time, so if you guys know, with Robyn, because she's so inexperienced with the broader pop culture things that I'm into, we can't really do a real battle usually, so it has to be a little bit more outside the box. So anyway, this time,
for the record, I know way too many nerdy things than I need to know because of this one. Just want to point that out.
So anyway, this time it's going to be a fight of who is the better boss between Michael Scott and Ron Swanson.
Do I get to pick first?
Mm-hmm.
Ron, obviously Ron. Why would I not pick Ron?
Well, you were humming and hawing. I didn't know.
Because it's a good one.
If you say so. All right, go ahead.
No, you go first.
No, you go
go first.
You have to go first.
Ron Swanson. How do I get started? Well, I don't even know where to go with him, actually. He acts like he doesn't care, but he secretly cares. So, therefore, it's kind of like you don't have to live up to too many expectations for him. Like, you're not always worried about pleasing him because he acts like he doesn't care, but he really is proud of you when you do a good job. So, it's like there's not that much pressure, but then there's appreciation at the end for what you do. So, that's pretty awesome. He's hilarious, and you can go get breakfast with him anytime because he loves breakfast food. So, that's plus. He has a cool cabin you can go to and have cool work retreats at.
He sold it.
Okay, I don't know what time period we're talking about in. He had it at some point. Anyway, you can get some clear entertainment through his Tammy debacles. If you're bored at work, just call it Tammy, and you won't be bored anymore. Also, if you don't like your job, then just go into his office and, he'll make you not do work so you don't have to worry about it. You can just spend time with him, because he's hilarious. Okay.
So, Michael Scott, the former owner and founder of the Michael Scott Paper Company and former regional manager of Dunder Mifflin Paper Company. You know, he's a strange man. You know, he has a very odd sense of humor. But you know what? I think his results speak for themselves. The Scranton branch of Dunder Mifflin was highest in sales for a bunch of times. I don't actually know how many times, but they mentioned that a lot, how successful their branch is. And at the end of the day, you know, while you have to have good people working there who are going to be committed to their jobs, what you really need is a good manager to manage those people and manage their talents. And I think that Michael Scott, despite all of his many quirks and questionable choices, I think he does a good job of that. And he's a better boss than Ron, who leads through fear and cold indifference.
If he led that way, then would everyone love him as much as they do? No, but everyone loves him. So clearly he's winning.
It's a different kind
Not
of
everyone
love.
Likes Michael.
Not everyone likes Ron.
Who doesn't like Ron?
Tammy.
Okay, I'm talking about who works for him. Tammy's crazy.
Well, we don't know who replaced Leslie and everyone after they all left. Spoiler alert. So you don't know.
I'm not even going to argue with this ridiculous logic.
So anyway, that is it for this very long update episode. So just really quickly, once again, I want to plug our YouTube and iTunes pages. I would highly recommend that you subscribe to both so that anytime I feel the need to spew my random rambling thoughts about what I've been watching, it'll just pop up and it'll be just a nice little surprise for you. I would also encourage you to follow me on Twitter at AtariAlex. You can find Brandon on Twitter by going to my profile and looking in my bio, and his username is there. It's the best way to get a hold of him. Well, that's the fastest way to get a hold of him. He actually doesn't use Twitter that much anymore. You can also find Robyn on Twitter by going down my timeline and looking for a cat meme.
Or a baby.
Sure.
Baby things.
And I think that's pretty much it. So, thank you all for listening, and we will catch you all later.